Okay, so is it visible to all of you? Kindly confirm this and then we'll start with our session today. All right, perfect, perfect. Okay, oral rounds and pleadings, right? First of all, we'll go for a bit of a introduction of the format of the oral rounds that happens in moot courts. There will be, of course, two teams competing with each other, and the every team will have an allocation of time for its submission. Then the time will be allotted. It should be divided according to the following format. Like first few minutes, for example, if you are awarded, the whole team is awarded 20 minutes, right? So the first speaker, if he or she is okay with 10 minutes, then he'll get the 10 minutes, and second speaker will get the 8 minutes, and you have to mandatorily you have to use 2 or 3 minutes for the rebuttals. You have to mention that in the portfolio that bailiff will take from you before the beginning of round, and you have to divide in that scenario. It can be like 8 minutes can be taken for by speaker one, and then speaker two will take 10 minutes. So it really depends on how long is your issue and how much time you will take, right? This is how it will begin, and then of course the court bailiff will note the time and it will show the play card. So whenever you are in the courtroom, you just have to not only you have to see the judges, but you have to also make sure that you see the court bailiff as well at times, like every 5 to 10 minutes, because he or she will be showing you the time actually, and that's how you will structure your argument. You will balance your time. If I have seen many speakers who are constantly staring to the bench and constantly making their eye contact, or they're so invested in their pleadings that completely forget that okay, there's a bailiff and there's time limit as well. So most of the time it happens with them that they are doing very good in the pleading, but they are not making any eye contact with the bailiff. They are not seeing whether the time's up or whether the time has left this much. So that's how they get ruined. So therefore, please do note the bailiff as well. And also he will be responsible for new ones who haven't done even one time this activity. He will first come to you. He will take there is a form. He will mention your name. He will mention the time of the speakers. And then he will also, take your memories and put in place with on the judge's desk as well. And any other kind of, problems which could arise in during the rounds. So the bailiff is made an in charge by the organization to handle all kind of scenarios. So he is also responsible for the decorum of the court. If anybody in the audience is making sounds and not following the decorum of the court, he has all the authority to make them go out of that room. So bailiff is really important in that scenario. And then of course the composition of team. In many moot courts, there are majorly 4 or 5 team members as well. Like in Phillips Jizil, because of the length of issues, an issue in itself is a moot problem in the Jazab. So there are mostly 4 speakers and 5 team members. So 4 speakers and 1 researcher, and that researcher is permanent in Jazab and in Hanidunal, right? So what happens is, of course, now 4 speakers are there, but they cannot all be present in the round and will be sitting in right there. Only 3 of them, 2 of the speakers will be there, and 1 researcher will be there. So always formation of the team will be. Nevertheless, what is the formation? It doesn't matter when you are in the oral rounds. So it happened with us, like when we were pleading for Jazab, then I was the permanent researcher as well in all rounds, and I was also the speaker in applicant side round. And my co-counsel in applicant, she was not present when we were doing respondents rounds when I was acting as a researcher. So at that time, when you are actually pleading and you're actually in the courtroom, then only 3 of you will be there. Doesn't matter, you have 4 or 5 members in the team. So this also makes sure this is also one of kind of thing in the moot courts. Now main topic of today is the effective pleadings. What are the tips? What are the practice routines that you should follow for, really shine out in your own around other participants as well. Healthy habits always makes you win. So first of all, know your case thoroughly. Uh, you have you cannot compromise on this aspect in any scenario. You have to know your case in terms of law, in terms of facts, and then in terms of general knowledge or relevant topics around it as well. Like for example, when I was dealing with sanctions, so I that was a kind of topic which didn't have any kind of mainly the case law research type things, because there was not a very evolved topic. So what I used to do is I used to see the countries where sanctions have been imposed, and Pakistan is unfortunately one of them. So I kind of analyze how the sanctions are imposed and how the global currency will affect it. Or you can also take the and that also really helped me when I was pleading in the courtrooms, when judges would randomly ask and I could not answer them with law at that time, because of course there was a very scarcity of law. Then I would answer them with this knowledge that okay, this for example, this country was also a victim of sanctions, and how they dealt, or how the sanctions are imposed, or the were blanket sanctions. One of my judges in quarters round in nationals of Philip C. Joseph had asked me that what are your thoughts on the blanket sanctions imposed on the Iran and Iraq by US. So I had to, present my neutral view to that thing, because but I said that without prejudice to this whole argument that I'm making to you. However, the scenario in the Iraq and Iran is, this kind of scenario, whatever was that, I just told the judge, and she was impressed by this thing that okay, I have a general knowledge for my issue as well. I'm not restricted to law, not restricted to facts only, but I'm also, observing it from all four corners. And that really impressed her. That really helped me. I could see that her expression is saying that, okay, she is satisfied with me. Uh, so, I applied this and this worked well for me. It will always work well for you as well. For example, if you are facing a case with a genocide convention, go for the Gaza genocide that is happening right now. You will find plenty of material to really talk about it. It really kind of, though that's very controversial, because of course it's not been decided by the court yet. Only I guess the South Africa has initiated the proceedings, but still you have to present your neutral view, or you have to apply your facts and your law, and then judge can, what judges are there, they're actually there to judge you, they're actually there to judge your intellect. So it doesn't really confine in the moot problem. You have to go beyond that as well sometimes. And be organized in terms of your documents. Of course, whenever you are like you are when you're cleaning, you have a file, and how you have to really organize your file, and the extra things like extra copies, that copies will be organized by your researcher. So your researcher has to really know that what argument you will do with in the order, and he or she should follow that order in while preparing his or her file as well. Because otherwise, if this coordination will not match, then the judges will also see. Judges do not always, or don't always see the speaker. Judges observe the full team. Even if when the speaker is performing good, if the researcher is lacking in these things like documentation, or when the other speaker and the researcher are not talking through chits, they are talking with each other like they are just sitting casually anywhere, or they are not. Their faces could tell that the speaker is doing a mistake. So keeping a focal face at that time for the speaker as well, and for the other parts or other members of the team is very crucial, because sometimes it happens when a speaker is performing good or a speaker is making a mistake, that now judges don't know that he is making a mistake, because of course how much you have prepared is always more than how the judges are prepared in most of the scenarios according to your case. So they really don't know, but they could observe that okay, he or she is making some kind of mistake that is panicking the other members of the team. So you really have to consider that. You don't need to really make it appear on your face that okay, he or she is doing something bad. You see, if that's going well, the judges are ignoring it. Judges do not, they couldn't catch you, then it's okay, let it be. And in terms of documentation, I learned in my first, in my first national Henry Dunant, that how to, really organize my file so it would really help me during the pleading. So first of all, place the document of your skeleton of submission. Like if you are a kind of speaker who writes each and every submission in detail, go with it. If you are a kind of speaker who just put a skeleton, put code wording or wording similar to, so that you can recall your submission at that time, put that paper along with you in the very first page of the file. Then there comes a moot problem, then memorial of your site. Okay, so because the memorial is necessary, because judges will can sometimes, they are casually looking at your memorial and they'll say, okay, counsel, turn on page number 5 and read the first paragraph. You don't know what is on the page 5 of memorial, so you have to keep it in your file to understand and to read it at that time. Otherwise, it will really look bad when you don't possess a memorial. And then cases, of course, case laws that you have used. And the criteria is that use the first page of case law, because it will show the name of the prosecutor, the name of the applicant, respondent, and the code, and then the relevant paragraphs of the judgment. Then commentaries, again, same, the first page and the relevant paragraphs. Then miscellaneous documents, like you are going for a UN document draft. So always go for the, first page and the relevant thing. Or you're going for a report by ICRC, or you're going for any article or journal. So go for the first page and the relevant paragraph. Or you're going for any kind of conference report, minutes of meeting of any, panel discussion. So again, same thing, that you have to go for the first page of their discussion and the relevant portions. Then a general page should be there for your in your file, and that is how general it should be. Like if I was when I was dealing with sanction issue, I kind of every different thing that I came to in contact with, I wrote it, I researched about it, and then I put it in place in my file, so that if even when the judges will ask that, okay, how central banks are sanctioned, and if they are sanctioned, how will they, give the technical aspect, and how will they actually not able to work? Now, that's a very technical question, and that is out of law as well. It is a very technical thing. So you need to know these kind of scenarios as well. Or randomly judges can ask that what's the difference between human rights and arts. So you really need to have that paragraph in your file, so you can just read it in front of judges. Okay, this is it. Or you can just take a slight look and pursue it in your own way. So these really help as well. And the next thing that should be in your file is the is a is a paper or a table where all the articles, all the cases of certain things relevant to your issue will be mentioned. Like if I'm going for environmental law, where the principles are mentioned in which judgment, I'll mention that judgment. What are the articles of any convention that are relevant to my issue? Then and generally in that issue as well, I'll mention that in the table of in that table, so that if randomly the judges are asking it, then I can answer them. Or this also helps us to memorize these things as well. Put it in the, there are two sides of the file. The first side, which will be opening, and then this side one. Place it in there, because it will always help you. Remember these tips, and then you will be, shining out in your own rounds. And then again, moving towards the from the file scenario, uh, now overall you have to be very organized in terms of time management. Time management in oral rounds is the important point. I remember when I was doing my first intra, and my pleadings were exceptional at that time. Judges really they really appreciated me at that time. But there was one judge which was also a very strict judge. He pointed it out that you couldn't complete your arguments in time, and that was not, looking good. So out of all the good things, he pointed out that thing. Judges do really matter for the time thing, and for this you have to practice and practice. You cannot do it any other way. There's no shortcut for it. You have to practice it. You have to complete, and you have to practice with your friends or teammates who will continuously ask questions, and you have to time balance and make these things. Um, and of course, you have to structure your submissions. Because whenever you are structuring your submission, you are leading them that, okay, I'll move forward to my second submission or third submission. So in that way, judges will also understand where are you going, and if the judges are taking too much time, so you can always restructure it at that time, and that's where a speaker's quality is shown, like how much a speaker has a potential in it within. So you have to really be mindful at that time. You cannot just go and say all the submissions like you're reading something or you have memorized it by heart. No, that's doesn't how it works. You have to be really present there. If you are absent-minded at that time, it will make you lose your round. So please consider these things. And whenever you are structuring your submissions, so this happens a lot whenever you are faced with a hot bench. uh they ask you a lot of questions. So do these things that if for example a judge has asked you a question from something that is already your third or fourth submission, so you have to say the judge and address him that, your excellency, this is also contained in my fourth submission, and the answer of your question is that, etc., etc., whatever you said. And then when you're done in that way, the judge also knows that this was your fourth submission, which you have to give the answer of that judge, you have mentioned that after your first submission. So you do not have to repeat that fourth submission, and the judge will have no problem when he will say when you will use three submission instead of four, because you have introduced it as four submission in your introduction, but you're going for three submission because you've already gone for the fourth submission in your answer. So that's how you are really, navigating judges as well. You have to take along judges with you. If judges are taking you along with them, then that's not gonna work, because then they have already overpowered you, and now there are very different very low potency that you can win the round, or you can really shine out. So always remember this thing: you will lead the judges, you will take them along with you. They shouldn't have that power. That's the quality of a good speaker. And also, whenever you are left with very short time, like 1 minute, 2 minutes, and you know that now you cannot complete your whole argument because you have been faced with a hot bench. Okay, hot bench basically means that the judges are very intrusive. They are very they're questioning all. They are just questioning and questioning. They are not listening to you at all. They are not giving you much time. They are taking your time more. So if that's the bench, then you have, of course, you'll get your time, minimized. So whenever you're left with 2 or 3 minutes or last 1.5 minutes, then you have to do it, put up your best argument before then. Really add your, fundamental argument before the judges, so that they could, erase all the things that have been done in the past and just remember this last thing you said, and mark your arguments accordingly. And I did it in my fellow judges of national rounds, where I was left with only 2 minutes, and I knew that I couldn't, if I'll go with the structure of my pleadings, I would be not able to finish it. And even if the judges would give me 2 more minutes, still I wouldn't be able to, finish it. So then I just put my last argument, and it was the best of my argument, and I could see the judges' impression that they were appreciating it. So always do these things. And whenever you are doing such things now, then judges also see that, okay, this speaker is mindful. This speaker is not absent-minded. This speaker knows that how to lead the bench. So that really helps. And now other crucial aspects of pleading. Whenever you are submitting your case before the court, there absolutely no requirement of flowery English. Like this has been a main concern of many participants which I have met. They always ask this question whether our English should be good enough to make the judges very uh, very, very helpful for us. They in the first instance, they are like, oh wow, what a speaker. No, that doesn't really goes well. If you are, speaking nicely, but you're speaking trash in terms of law, in terms of facts, you do not have any ability, any potential, then it's not gonna worth it. So flowery English should not be your target. The only target is that you should be able to speak. You know, there are types of English. Now, what I'm doing right now, my English is not flowery at all, but I am trying to speak in a way, and I'm not using very difficult words. I'm using very use formal language, but you can use easy and formal language. There's no need to go for the different phrases, different words and heavy sentences. No, there's absolutely no requirement to do that. Just place your arguments, just place it in a decent English, in enough to make sense, enough to make the other person understand. Because at the end of the day, consider that you are conveying your point. You are using the language to convey your point. There's no other requirement. You're not going for IELTS test as well on that time. You're just conveying it. So present it that way. And that really helps with your confidence as well. When you're, pressurizing yourself for flowery English, for different phrases and difficult words, you will only remember them and not the arguments then. So now choose wisely what you have to remember. And then style of reading, of course, I have seen many, my fellows and many other participants as well. When I was in Concord as well, I was educating them. I have seen them that most of them were reading. Most of them were not in a style that was interactive. Even if you are, before the judge, you are still interacting with that person. You are not a robot. You are not someone that a teacher has, put it in a place to stand up and read, or read the argument that you are made in front of whole class. No, you are trying to convey your point. You are trying to make the other person understand. And only this will happen when you will be, interacting with that person, not just reading, not just debating. In debate, the other person cannot ask the questions from you, right? In debate, only you go with it. So you are also in lectures like what we have been doing in the last 2 days. Nobody's questioning in between. So I am speaking continuously. This is also not the case in the meeting as well. You have to, the judges can interrupt you. They are interrupting you. That makes sense that they are interacting with you. When they are interacting with you, you should do the same. Otherwise, the judge will get bored. I especially get very bored when the speaker is not interactive, and that doesn't look good as well. And always stop when the judges are asking question, even when you are starting just half. So if I'm saying important, so if I'm saying info and the judges are asking question, I have to stop it there, right there. I do not even have a time to conclude the word important as well. That's how you show the respect, and you show that the which who has the authority right now. And completely, whenever the judge starts talking, leave all the things that are in mind, leave everything that is happening in the courtroom. It's just between the judge and you. Listen it religiously, and with full focus what the judge is trying to say. And then take your time. If you have 10 seconds or 5 seconds, answer it calmly, composedly. If you do not have any answer at that time, and you think you cannot, just blabber right now, so you can also say this, that okay, Your Excellencies, I have note down your questions, and this will be answered in the rebuttals, or this will be answered by my co-counsel. You can always do these things, right? Or you can always take pardon. Pardon, Your Excellencies. I am not I do not have any answer available right now, but I'll certainly answer you, or my co-counsel will answer you. Always go with this. Or take your time and go 2 minutes, 10 seconds or 5 seconds, look at the and try to understand, act that okay, you got the question, you are searching something, and you'll answer it. And that's how it shows that okay, the speaker is a mature one. He's not someone who is very impatient to answer. And even if when you have the answer right in your mouth, still you do not have to make it very, come out very impatiently. That would not look good. You have to always be subtle and calm while doing pleading. And the other things are, of course, when you are receiving a hot bench. And it's very good if you receive a hot bench, because the hot benches are always one who marks very nicely, because they are very invested in you. The poor benches are, sometimes you do not really know whether they could understand your argument, or they are, just sleeping with their eyes open. So it's really good if you get a tough bench. Don't get disheartened when the round is completed, because hot benches are always invested in your arguments. And given the only thing you can do with the hot bench is given completely submit yourself completely, make them feel that okay, you are here to guide them. You are here to provide assistance to them, whatever they require for judging this round, for making a judgment. So therefore, you have to do that. If you can answer each question of them, even if they are asking, for example, they are asking 15 questions. You have answered 13 or 14 or 12 of them, and some of them you are not very satisfactory. You have mentioned that the counsel will go, you will answer that in rebuttal. Even in that time, consider that this is a win because you have answered them and they are satisfied. Just it's not that you have answered them and they are not satisfied. Then of course you will not get the round win. But when you are going in that thing, understand this thing, and the hot bench will always make you will always require that you submit themselves. I was faced with a hot bench in my very first experience of intra, where I was doing the issues, and the judges kept asking questions from first issue till the second and third fourth issue, because I was the only speaker. There was some tragedy involved, so I couldn't, my co-counsel couldn't come up. So they allowed me for four issues, and the judges was just start questioning from first question. They didn't even let me introduce my second issue, third or fourth issue. They just continuously asked questions. So I was kind of dragged from first issue to fourth in question. And all three of them very charged, very aggressive in terms of questioning. They were not leaving a chance to, not question me sometimes. And but I won that round because they were like, okay, this speaker has some guts. This speaker is not, making us to wait and making her argument. She has already given. She's answering everything, and that's what they want. And do what the judges want. And that's how I was marked rightly, and I won that round. I was proceeded. So that's how you have to deal with the odd bench sometimes. And also, the second point that I would like to introduce is that always have an alternative argument. This always helps you whenever the judges, are very rigid. Sometimes judges becomes very rigid. And no, your argument doesn't make sense to me. I couldn't agree. No matter how much you provide, how much referencing you are providing, then and no matter it doesn't matter the other person, the other member of the benches are also satisfied with the answer. The would be some judges, one judge have any alternative route. So at that time, you can, always slightly answer that thing that Your Excellencies, this is the best argument that I have. But for your assistance, we can also, that's how the judges will understand that, okay, she's not holding or losing her ground, but she's also, for my assistance, for my satisfaction, she's going in that way and she's giving me an alternative argument. And that doesn't really have to be law always, because in my issue always I have always received some issues in my two moot courts where there was very a scarcity of law. So I always have to go for other means, the other their social things and other things that I just told you, that common sense sometimes. So I have to back my argument with them with these as well. Now, when I was dealing with sanctions, the sanctions was imposed, and they were blanket sanctions in Philips jail, right? So I had to really dodge the question sometimes in a way that, okay, even if the sanctions are imposed in a way, it will not harm the people in a way that harms in the real world, because the global currency is dollars, and in our problem, there's no such mention of any global currency, so they can still trade in other currencies. Now, this is not something you can call law, or you can call facts. This is plain common sense. This is plain, technical thing that you can, put up to the judge, and he or she doesn't have any answer to it. He or she cannot question it at all. So these techniques always helps you out. And of course, do not leave your ground in the start. But whenever you are going for your argument, even if the judge is not liking it, try to pursue him or her. The judges play it hard to get, they try to make you exhaust that no, okay, they are not liking your arguments, but or they are trying to make, or when they know your weak points, they will take you in that direction. Do not go in that direction as well, because judges have this. If the judge is, well versed with your mood problem and well versed with the law, then he or she will do anything to make you lose your ground. And if you have, given in that time, then of course you have no right to win then. And therefore, you should always, go for alternative options or arguments but do not give in or lose your ground. Even when I just repeated now, uh, that you have to go for the alternative argument for the sake of satisfaction of the judge's question. You can also use that phrase that is for the sake of the requiredness or the requirement of your question. I am going to that way. The counsel is going to that way. That's how you deal it. Also, do not play over smart, even if you are well versed with your mood problem and law, and you are very confident within it. Do not ask questions when you are done answering. Like, I have submitted my answer, now I cannot ask your excellencies any other questions. If you do not have any other queries, can I proceed? Do not do that, because even if it looks nice and formal and very respectful towards the judges, but you are inviting a problem. You're questioning them. Okay, I have just answered you. Do you have any other questions? So we can just debate, because I judge to make you more exhaust. Do not do that. Just humbly make a thankful note for them and go towards your submission which you have left for the answer. Always do this. And then, of course, eye contact, that's a basic thing. Whenever you're not maintaining eye contact with the three of judges and the fourth one is your bailiff, then you are really losing thing, because then the judges will get bored. They are there to, listen you, but if you are not making eye contact with them, so what's the point of them? And that's also very disrespectful if one judge is sitting there and you are not making any eye contact with him or her. Also, do a thing. Okay, wait a second. The meeting is only left for 1 minute. So, Anil, what we'll do? Will we end it and restart a new one? If you are gonna do that, I guess you should start it now. I could not hear you at all. Okay, Mohammed Umar is saying second link is already shared in the group. So should we join that already? Okay, should I restart? Okay, we were at the maintaining of eye contacts, right? Whenever you are doing reading, you have to maintain the eye contacts with the judges. And also, it should not be too long. You are comfortable with the judges, I know, but it should not be too long and judges start getting uncomfortable. You don't have to make uncomfortable, you just have to convey your point. And it should not be too little as well, like 2 seconds, 3 seconds. That won't work. It should be of right amount whenever you're speaking. Go, like if there are three of them, I'll just do it. If you're speaking, that's how you should address it. You slightly move with your neck as well, so they could understand it. Okay, you are seeing each of them. That's how you really play around when you are going for your rounds. And of course, the judges sometimes know your weak points. So we have already covered that. You do not have to go for the judges trap when they are making you go for your weak arguments. You have to really be very mindful at that time that judges are playing a trick on you and should not get in their tricks. And then, of course, lastly, you should show your emotions as well. When you are speaking, so you're not, a robot is not speaking there. A robot is not going for it. You are, even in mooting, you are going for a case like that. There's some kind of violation of law happened with your client, and you have to make the judges feel that, okay, this has happened with the clients, and therefore the council is trying to pursue us in that matter. So you have to sometimes you have to play, really, whenever you're responding, my teacher has always said this, you have to really be humble, and really make you show that, okay, something has bad happened to you, or the opponent is making, uh, arguments that do not sound good. But it should not be in that way that looks cunning. You understand what I'm saying? you are presenting your arguments. For example, if I am talking about an armed conflict and the death of civilian, I cannot do that with a straight face. I could say that, Your Excellency, hundreds and thousands of civilians have been died, and there's no accountability of that. The military target was not found, and therefore they should not be get killed. There were hundred and thousand lives, hundred and thousand homes that were destroyed. I adding these phrases in between, making your point subtle. Now I cannot just cry about it. No, Your Excellencies, the civilians have been died, and the hundreds and thousands of homes have been destroyed. What will they do? What their children will do? Don't brag it about it, because of course that's fake. You do not have any concern for that. Even in real courts, lawyers do not have much concern about their clients. They are still doing it for for the sake of profession. So be subtle with your arguments always, but do show your emotion as well, that okay, this happened and this should not really have happened, and this is also unlawful. Up to this mark. And then of course rebuttals. Okay, whenever you're going for the oral rounds, the rebuttal is the main game changer. Whenever a judges, you could feel that there's some lack of things, some things that you just missed, and they were really fundamental for your arguments, but you somehow missed it. It happens. It's memory. You are really stressed. Voting is not all funs and all games. It's also very stressful at times. So you could forget as well. So it's okay unless you gain it in the rebuttals. You make it really well, or pay well for the rebuttals as well. So in rebuttals, always try to go with full of your mind, go with hit the most fundamental point of your opponent's argument. Do not just go for every point that he or she had made. That's a judge's thing. Hit only fundamental things that he or she had made. And also, sometimes there are many things. There's one argument that could destroy the whole case of the opponent. So try to search that, okay, which point he or she has really premised his case on. And if you're gonna destroy it from the root, then of course you got your argument. You have been my co-counsel in Philip C. Jessup. She did this in the final thing. When she was doing the pleading, she did her all arguments, and in final the rebuttal, she made an argument about some kind of demilitarized zone, and she said, Your Excellency, they have talked about this, etc., etc. If that is not in this way, which I am presenting before this honorable court, then we are ready to submit our case. We are not ready to fight it anymore. These kind of words, when you are and that shows confidence that okay, you have the other opponent has made some kind of blunder that you have pointed out. This will also make them shock the opponents. Okay, why she is saying such big things? She'll rest the case if this didn't happen in that way. So therefore, kindly in rebuttals, use your intellect at that time, that okay, you have to crush the opponent at that time. In sportsmanship, you do not have to make it really look ugly or evil, but in terms of professionalism, go for the fundamental point of their issue, and make specific rebuttals, of course. And then again, the next thing that in rebuttals you have to do is, yes, only make two or three rebuttals, or even if you make one rebuttal. When I was, listening the Red Cross final round, of course we couldn't proceed in that. So the final teams that were there, they just made two rebuttals or one, I guess. I listened that championship round, and that was so on point. Like I just said, there were fundamental things. They didn't make like two, or even though the opponent had made many mistakes, but she only chose to argue on or present or highlight those specific rebuttals, and which made them win the round, because their pleading was not too good when I was observing it. But the rebuttal that she made, that's where I know that okay, she's gonna win it. Also, if some mistake is pointed out by the judge of your opponent, then you do not have to make it in your rebuttal. The judges already pointed out. Judges know that he or she had done this mistake, and therefore it's not your duty anymore to hit that point, because you will just lose your precious time of 2 minutes or 3 minutes of rebuttals, or winning in that last chance. And also time management, of course, in rebuttal as well. You're going for two rebuttals and you're taking 4 hours, so it's not good. If you have allotted 2 minutes, complete it in 2 minutes. And then, and in final, you have to say that, Your Excellencies, as we have submitted all the rebuttals and arguments, we rest the case. We rest the case, right? Because you're not an individual there. You're representing a group of lawyers for your client. So we rest the case before this honorable court. That's how you should do. And also, whenever I've observed this in many in my time when I was participating, there are many students in who consider that when you're hitting the points of another opponent, you have to be sarcastic. You have to, show devilish smile, and you really have to go with that aura that okay, I have just pointed out your main arguments. Even if you are doing that, you should not really, your body language should not adopt that. You should not have this in mind that okay, you can be sarcastic here. You have to just go and point to Your Excellencies that Your Excellencies, these are the mistakes that the opposing counsel my learned counsel has made, and I would like to point it out. The council would like to point it out. You do not have to say I, because I am out of practice now, so I have this thing. But in courts, you do not say, you cannot mention yourself. I believe I am doing no. Go always. The council is addressing. The council presents. The council submits. Go for these things, right? So go for this language as well. That my learned council has submitted this. My learned council has referred this, which Your Excellencies is slightly different from what has had been mentioned there, or the context has been changed. In this aspect, you are trying to assist the judge at the end of the day, that Your Excellencies, my fellow councils are not up to mark, and they have made a slight mistake which you should really consider before deciding our case. So if you will have this in your mind, you'll present your body language, your tone will always come up with this argument as well. Otherwise, if you are having that urge to destroy the opponent, though you should have that urge because it's competition, but have it in healthy manner. Do not have it in an unhealthy manner. That would look just disgusting, because judges do know that what your mind is going through on, because they are really there, and they are shut up and they are judging you. They are judging on this as well, that what's your body language, what's your tone of argument, and what's your intention behind it. So don't make them don't consider them fools. They are really really ahead of you, and they have already participated in many of these things. So you should really give them that edge. And lastly, I want to talk about the appearance of teams. This I have also noticed many times. You have to look neat and clean all of the time. Whenever you're in the courtroom, your tie cannot slide down. Your hair cannot be messy, though it's your own style. And personally, you can dress up however you want. You can keep any hairstyle you want. But when you're going in the court, you're going to address before the honorable judges, right? So you have to be really look presentable, and you really need to adhere to uniform rules. The uniform rules can be like neat and clean hair, cut hair for boys and for girls as well. For girls, I have seen girls that are that wear their hair open. This is not something that will look really pleasing, because that's really unformal. Whenever you're going in the courtrooms, go for the ponytail, either go for half up to like I just did right now. These look, your face should be showing. There should be no hair on your face, so that you keep doing this, and the judges are giving you time. Okay, go do your hairdo right now. And for boys as well, do not wear any extra accessories or jewelry. You're not allowed to wear any necklace. Even if you have to wear earrings, for girls, I am saying this, do it subtle, make very, very, very light tops, or don't wear it at all, because that won't add anything. For boys as well, do not wear that jewelry, or brooches, or what do you call that? I guess it's called brooches or brook. I don't exactly know how it sounds, but don't wear extra things. Wear a simple watch, but it should not be, very overpowering watch. So whenever you're using your hand, the judges could see the watch is very highlighted and very, fancy watches. Do not wear them as well. Also, do not wear any kind of, large rings with stones. Make sure your hands are bare. If you are wearing some slight rings, then it's okay, but only one or two, not more of them. You have to, if you are wearing continuously, then even when you are wearing any kind of, jewelry or bangles which are very mandatory for you, make them slide in, and that make sure it doesn't show to the judges, because these will always make you look casual. So never look casual. For shoes as well, it should be black. They should not be in any other color. They should not be contrasted. Also for girls, there should be heels, but they should not be like pointed heels so that you will walk and it will make sounds. Go for wages that can really go for such kind of environments, because you are in a formal environment. You are appearing before the judges. You cannot really make a fool out of yourself. You cannot afford them. Also, there is marking for this as well. They'll mark that how you are dressed enough. You are dressed well enough or not. And also there should be no loud makeup or hairstyles as well. Be really simple, neat, subtle, look clean, look nice before them, but do not look over before them. And I'm pretty sure you all guys know what I mean by over, and not subtle in a way. So I guess I have covered all my points, and I do not think so there's anything left. But if you guys have any kind of experience in voting, so if you guys consider that I have left some points, kindly tell me now, and you're always ask queries. You can ask queries as well now, since I'm done with my portion. Now it's all about you, whether you have understood it or not understood it. Any feedback that you would like to give me, so anything that comes in your mind. Yes, Mohammed Umar. Okay, Mohammed Umar has asked that how to, overcome with the fact that I have stuck and I'm unable to answer that question. Very easy. Umar, you can do it always. You can, if you do not have any direct answer to that, and you think that you cannot answer that, you can always ask for time, Your Excellencies. I'll answer that question in the last, in the last, or or in rebuttals, or either my co-counsel will answer that question. You can always, move forward with these things. If you are unable to answer that, or if you have do not any knowledge, your co-counsel will not answer it, that you cannot even answer it in rebuttals, then don't waste judges time. Don't make them, don't uh, uh, pamper their expectations. Go for the simple thing, Your Excellencies. I apologize. The council apologize on the fact that the council is unable to answer your question. This will always save your time, save judges time. This will also make you humble as well in the judge's eye, that okay, he or she doesn't know the answer, but he's being humble about it, being honest about it, and that's all. Because of course they know that you cannot always have answers of all questions. No judge can expect this from a mooter, from any lawyer, that he or she can answer all all questions. They are considered that, and this will also make a judge feel good. Okay, I asked the trickiest question that he or she couldn't answer. So that's also brownie points in that way. So consider it as a positive thing and do it that way. Yes, for the sir.
Ma'am, I went to one food court where my judge, likely he was just, we were in a debate. My fact was about a child's, uh, it was about custody case of a minor. So the thing was, I was right in my fact. It was 20,000 amount that was fixed by the judge in the memorial, but my judge was kept saying that the amount is 35,000, which was decided later after 1 year. It was upgraded to 35,000, and we kept on a debate. I was saying that the basic amount is 20,000, and the judge was saying no, it is 35,000. So the Bailey took my memorial and I highlighted. Again, the judge was saying the same. Like, how can we tackle the rigidity of judges if they are doing so?
But this is what you just said in the last, that what judges asked from you.
The amount was 20,000 at the basic time of the custody, the maintenance of the minor.
So
Later
the
on, it
maintenance of
was,
minor, right? 20,000
yes,
was the amount.
yes, yes, ma'am.
All right, and
Uh,
and
the judge was saying that it is 30,000, 35,000, which was upgraded later on. It was not the basic time when I was just starting my case, and the judge I think he just opened 5 to 6 pages, and in between he started arguing that the amount is 35,000. How can you say 20,000? Like I was in my start of the argument, and I kept saying, sir, the basic amount is 20,000, and he just kept saying, no, it is 35,000. You are pronouncing wrong argument. And we were in a debate for 2 minutes. Later on, the belly took my memorial. I highlighted. Again, he was just upset with that I have corrected himself. Likely, my question is that we should counter that rigidity of the judge, or we should accept the fact.
Look, Mudassir, you can counter them always, of course, because you have to make your case visible and really persuasive in that thing. But maybe the judge didn't like the tone of your argument, and of course, if you are no, if you are correcting them, many people don't like correction, and then in the authority they do not like it at all. So maybe a tone of maybe your tone maybe would be a sarcastic, or maybe a slightly different from what you would have expected. Maybe you could, if I would be there and if I would have pointed out the judges saying that this is 35,000, not 20,000, then I would have just started it that way, Your Excellencies. In these references, it is mentioned 20,000. However, maybe because of my slip of tongue, you must have heard it 35,000, and for that thing, the council apologized before this court. Take that in a very diplomatic way, that okay, even if it's a judge mistake, you are taking it on you because of my, however, perhaps because of my mistake or my slip of tongue, it must have happened. You can always, play around the judges so you can see that, don't make them feel disrespected, disrespectful at all. Even when I, used to argue before judges, I would always say, Your Excellencies, the council is respectfully disagreeing with your point. You can always start with this as well. And the judges would be amused. Okay, she's disagreeing, but she's disagreeing respectfully. So that also, lightens up the environment, and the judge is saying that, okay, judge also understand that, okay, she's being respectful, but of course she can contradict me. Otherwise, if she would not contradict, how would she go for her argument? So, play with words when some these situations happens.
Right.
Yes, Mohammed Umar.